Caitlin Clark spent last season getting hacked, taking cheap shots, and facing defenders who thought they could bully her into submission. But those days are over. The Indiana Fever have loaded up with not one, not two, but three enforcers who won't let that slide anymore.
So the Indiana Fever have got their enforcer. They have got their enforcer for Caitlin Clark. And I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to Caitlin Clark and their enforcer, last year everyone was talking about them needing an enforcer.
Enter Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and Dawana Bonner, three veteran stars who bring toughness, grit, and a no-nonsense attitude. If Clark's haters thought they could keep targeting her with cheap shots and dirty plays, they're in for a rude awakening. The message is crystal clear. If you come for Clark, you'll have to go through them first.
The thing they had was Erica Wheeler. That was the closest thing they had for someone to defend Caitlin Clark, was Erica freaking Wheeler. Maybe Tammy, but Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley.
This move isn't just about adding talent. It's a statement. The Fever aren't just here to compete. They're here to dominate. With these new additions, they've built a team that plays fast, plays tough, and, most importantly, protects their star. Clark's Bullies have been put on notice. So, how will these three game changers turn the Fever into one of the WNBA's most dangerous teams? Let's break it down.
Sometimes you need one of those players on your team. You need one of those enforcers. Every good player, by the way. Every good player, every good team that is a super duper star. Most of the time have enforcer time.
Imagine this. Caitlin Clark, the most electrifying rookie the WNBA has seen in years, steps onto the court for her debut season. The energy is electric, fans are on the edge of their seats, and everyone expects her to put on a show. But instead of a smooth welcome to the league, she gets hammered. Hard fouls, unnecessary contact, and physical play that borders on outright targeting. What was really going on here?
Oh, I see. They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court.
Let's break it down. This wasn't just the usual rookie treatment. Clark faced a level of aggression that went beyond competition. Cheap shots, body checks, and fouls that had no place in the game became routine. At times, it felt less like basketball and more like a wrestling match. And here's the shocking part. Clark wasn't just another rookie adjusting to physical play. She was targeted. The numbers don't lie. A staggering 177% of all flagrant fouls in the WNBA last season were committed against her. That's not just tough defense. It's clear evidence that players were making it a mission to rough her up.
Little girl wants to grow up and play in a league where you're targeted like that. How do you sit here and profess and demand that everyone take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? It's stupid. That's so dumb. It looks like a soap opera.
And leading the charge? None other than the Chicago Sky. A jaw-dropping 80% of those flagrant fouls against Clark came from just one team. That's not a coincidence. It's a statement. They weren't just defending her, they were sending a message. But why? Was it intimidation? Frustration? Or just an old-school attempt to slow down a rising star? Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. Clark's presence was shaking up the league, and some players didn't like it.
Clark! Hammer!
The worst examples came courtesy of Angel Reese herself. Picture Clark driving through the lane, eyes locked on the basket, when suddenly, bam.
A lot of times, and we didn't get a lot of calls, and going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special.
One of the worst incidents came at the hands of Angel Reese herself. Picture this. Clark drives through the lane, eyes locked on the basket, then bam. Reese sends her crashing to the floor. The arena goes silent. Fans hold their breath. Would she get up? The hit was so brutal that even the commentators started questioning if it had gone too far. But Clark, she's built different. She shook it off, got back on her feet, and kept playing like nothing happened.
Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Kennedy Carter.
That's what sets Clark apart, her composure under pressure. While everyone else debated whether the hits were too much, she stayed locked in. Even after taking a blatant cheap shot from Kennedy Carter, Clark's response was simple. That's just not a basketball play, but got to play through IT.no complaints. No retaliation, just pure mental toughness, the kind that builds legends.
The signing of Natasha Howard represents a massive step forward for the Indiana Fever and their quest for a championship. In Howard, the Fever gain a three-time WNBA champion, a Defensive Player of the Year, an All-Star, and a veteran with more than 300 games played.
But while Clark proved she could take the hits, the Fever's front office knew they couldn't let her go through another season unprotected. So they made big moves, game-changing ones. With the addition of some serious enforcers, Indiana is making sure that no one gets away with bullying Clark anymore. So, who are these enforcers, and how will they transform the entire dynamic of the Fever? Let's dive in.
That, and we haven't yet touched upon what Howard does best: defend. Howard was named Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 and has finished in the top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year voting 3 times in her career. Howard has averaged at least 1 block and 1 steal per game in each of her last 7 seasons. And that versatility is really what makes her a weapon on.
Natasha Howard isn't just another addition to the Indiana Fever. She's the enforcer this team desperately needed. The moment she stepped into that locker room, the message was clear. Caitlin Clark is no longer an easy target. For those who don't know, Howard is a 3-time WNBA champion, a former Defensive Player of the Year, and the kind of tough, battle-tested veteran who transforms a team's entire identity. She's not here for gimmicks. She's here to make sure the days of Clark getting bullied on the court are over.
With a minimum of 25 games played, Natasha Howard was one of just 13 players to average 18 points per game. She was one of 16 players to average 7 rebounds per game. And the list of players to average both 18 and 7 last year, short and elite. Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Brittany Griner, and yes, Natasha Howard.
Last season, Clark faced relentless physicality from defenders who thought they could rough her up without consequence. But now, those same defenders will have to think twice before trying those same antics. Howard's presence alone shifts the balance of power. Standing beside Clark on the court, she instantly commands respect. But Howard isn't just an enforcer. She's a game changer on both ends of the floor. Last season, she put up 17.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, and nearly 3 assists per game. Elite-level production. And the best part? She can stretch the floor. With Howard's ability to knock down shots from beyond the arc, she'll create even more space for Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston to dominate.
That wingspan and 6'2" height allows her to be disruptive defensively around the rim on opposing bigs too. In fact, Howard will enter the 2025 season 25th all-time in blocks in WNBA history.
Defense is where Howard truly dominates. There's a reason she won Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. She's a nightmare for anyone trying to score in the paint. With her length, physicality, and aggressive style, she makes life miserable for opponents. And when it comes to protecting her teammates, let's just say she has a history of stepping up when it matters most. But Howard's most valuable asset might be her playoff experience. The Fever are a young squad with tons of potential, but deep postseason runs require composure and leadership, things only veterans can provide. Howard has played in over 50 playoff games, and that kind of experience is priceless. She knows what it takes to win, and now she's bringing that championship mentality to Indiana.
Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley. You've got that in Sophie.
Howard's excitement matches that of Fever fans. In her own words, "I'm excited to return to Indiana and bring my experience and toughness to the team. I want to help Caitlin and the Fever compete at the highest level." And that's exactly what she's going to do. This move isn't just about protecting Clark, it's about elevating her. Howard knows what it takes to be a champion, and now she's here to show Clark and the Fever how to dominate. With her in the mix, Indiana isn't just fighting back, they're ready to take over.
For video, like there are so many videos of Sophie Cunningham just starting brawls.
Sophie Cunningham is heading to Indiana, and the WNBA just got a whole lot more interesting. If Caitlin Clark needed someone to keep the Bullies in check while knocking down threes, she just got her. The Fever weren't just searching for talent this offseason. They were looking for toughness. And in Cunningham, they found both.
Cunningham, in general, is just wild. Wild is the best word I can use to describe Sophie Cunningham. And like, it is just, it's carnage. Like, it's carnage a lot of time when Sophie Cunningham gets involved with anything. The amount of fights that Sophie Cunningham has been involved in is meant